Hi, welcome to mayowasworld. Hi, y'all. Today I'm going to be talking about everyone's topic that they love to hate, colorism. And I am once again going to try to not do so many edits because my fixation with editing prevents me from creating a more consistent basis. Actually, I don't even like the concept of consistency because consistency doesn't really work with how reality is existing. But I just want to get better at not feeling so much pressure to upload a video. So I just wanted to put it out in the first 5 seconds. I'm gonna be talking about colorism because, child, talking about colorism, oh my god, like I have to take breaks. And not even because I necessarily want to take breaks, but I have to take breaks because the hate under every colorism video is so astronomical. The hate is unreal. It's wild. And making content that gives you fucking death threats is hard, bro. Like, y'all colorist people, y'all mobilize like a motherfucker. You guys are under every comment just writing terrible things, so it's very difficult for me to want to share my thoughts on because I'm scared to say it, because I have to sometimes weigh out if I want to deal with the hate that comes with the comments. But for some reason today I'm feeling very spicy. I don't know what it is that is making me want to create content that I know will likely get me dragged and drugged, but we out here. So yes, okay, I actually would like to talk about, I like to talk about 3 things pertaining to colorism, but the biggest thing I want to talk about is In the Heights. That's what we're going to talk about today. Like, for real, for real. Towards the end, I want to talk about Pose, because that's another thing I want to talk about with colorism. And then on a lighter surface, I'm talking about 3 things with colorism today, so I already know it's going to be fucking hell. I want to talk about getting makeup, because I'm living in Nigeria, right? And every single time, like, getting makeup for me is like very triggering, because every single time I try to get makeup, the person who's trying to help me, it's like always, first of all, I never have been helped to get makeup by a dark skinned person the same color as me or darker than me. I've never had that happen. The people who are helping me get my makeup are always lighter than me, and I don't think that they can tell my complexion because they're always wildly off. And every single time, especially in Nigeria, when I try to get makeup, they get me getting shades that is like making me look light skinned, or like an attempt to want to be, because I feel like they think that why would I want to be my color? So they're always trying to get me to, like, they'll pull out a shade and it'll be like the fucking color of, like, it would be like a Beyonce color, but oh, I think this could be it. And I'm like, no, it's not my color. That happens everywhere in the world. It's actually really frustrating. I wish there were more dark skinned people working in makeup places to help us get our makeup. But for dark skinned people to be working in makeup places, that means that we would have to have makeup that is tailored to us to be able to, like, show that we can do makeup well. But since there's not so much makeup that is good for dark skinned people, then we're not working in these places, and it's a cycle. And the cycle is very frustrating, and it's very triggering for me because I really hate when people give makeup that's too light, like consistently always trying to get me to get makeup that's too light. But I finally got makeup that's actually my color, because one lady was actually very helpful. But she had tried it though, she tried it. But today, that day I had more patience, so I'm wearing a color that finally, like, fits my complexion, which to me is a win. So that's the dark skin win of the day. And then I want to talk about this In the Heights thing by, what's that man's name? Hold on. Okay, so it's done by John M. Chu and Lin Manuel. That's that person's name. Okay, so everyone's talking about it online. The Root did, like, this amazing interview just asking him straight up, and just even to say, that was my first time ever seeing a dark-skinned person ask a director, why don't you put us in your things? And it's so sad that in 2021, that's the first time I'm seeing that, like, really brought to be a discourse.
But as a Black woman of Cuban descent, specifically from New York City, it would be remiss of me to not acknowledge the fact that most of your principal actors were light-skinned or white-passing Latinx people. So with that, what are your thoughts on the lack of Black Latinx people represented in your film?
And I'm really, like, it makes me very proud and happy to see so many dark-skinned people advocating for our rights and advocating for the injustices that we have been seeing for hundreds of years. But just like, yeah, now being able to like vocalize it and say it, like that is the first time I've ever seen anyone do that. But I wanted to kind of go through, I wanted to like watch the root and pull out things that I saw that's gaslighting and showing the ways that people gaslight and avoid and just act booky when it comes to colorism. My first feeling when I saw all this happening, I had watched the interview and I felt like, part of me felt like it's triggering once again, because it's just kind of like, to me, sometimes colorism is just a lot of times colorism is just really fucking boring. It's really boring. Like I can tell, like, for him in the interview, for both of them in the interview, that was the first time they being held accountable.
I think that was something we talked about, and I needed to be educated about, of course. In the end, you know, when we were looking at the cast, we tried to get the people who were best for those roles, and that specifically, and we saw a lot of people like Daphne or Dasha. But I hear you on, you know, trying to fill those cast members with darker skin. I think that's a really good conversation to have.
But for me, I'm like, you have no dark-skinned friends. Like you have no one in your life who's checking you. You have created a system for yourself to never be checked, which sounds about white, to be honest, but that's that. And so for me, I felt like I feel bored by this whole discussion, like bored by the fact that this is another film where it's a paper bag color. And like, I really want to wake this up. Because when you tell people like, oh yeah, you know, they used to do the paper bag test, and people always say, oh, paper bag test is so bad, it's so bad. But like every content that we consume in media is literally still playing by the paper bag test rule. Like, I feel like people really need to be holding up a paper bag to like the things that we see in media, and you will see that people are that color and lighter on every occasion, okay? But like somehow like talking about it, I think people think the idea of excluding someone for their complexion is bad, but they don't realize that they do that every single day from day to day just because we've been conditioned to do that. And even dark-skinned people do it to dark-skinned people. So we need to really wake that up. Every single time I see a bunch of all light-skinned people, I'm just gonna be putting a paper bag so y'all can just see that it's literally just, it's following the fucking rules. So like people say, like, I can't believe back in the day they used to put paper bags outside of doors so people knew that if they were darker they can't come in. It's the same thing now. They just don't put the paper bag outside of the door. And I think it's interesting because I feel like our generation is one that loves like performative allyship. Like we you know, back in the day they'll put a paper bag or they'll say like no darkies or no blacks, and I think everyone's like, oh, that's terrible, how can anyone do that? But like it's doing it now. Like that's where we're in, where it's been doing it. But because it's like not written and it's not like publicized, people think that it's like it's not so bad. It's kind of like how like America, like we had like a half black president, but he's literally like bombing countries and like murdering people like nonetheless, like all the other white ones, but like, because it like looks good, we're like sold. Or we have Kamala Harris, like, but because it looks a certain way, we're like sold. So like this, like I feel like we get very, very easy into like falling for like the performativeness that all of this brings. Even with this guy Lin-Manuel, like he had released some bummy ass fucking apology, just trash apology, and I think that he thought that people would be like, ah, he apologized. But I just always want to like bring to attention that's like so important that like when it comes to colorism, like there's so much like I do a lot of calling out on colorism because I have the smoke to do it. But I feel like actually colorism should really be centered on just dark skinned non-men. That's actually where all the focus should totally be on. And there should be people who, you know, ultimately I shouldn't even be the person calling things out. It should be someone lighter than me or light skinned calling things out. But because of the way everything is, we have to advocate for ourselves, so here I am doing that. And I also just want to say always too, within my intersections of being dark skinned, like I still have a lot of privileges that a lot of people don't have. I'm able-bodied. I'm also too, there's people who are deep dark skinned who are a lot darker than me. I'm on the lighter spectrum of being dark skinned. Like there's just certain things that come with being dark skinned. So that also gives me like more energy to advocate for people who are darker than me, as I always say. So that was that was that. And like this TV show, like when I just saw the commercial, I'm just like, this is so fucking boring. Like the late night shit taste beans and rice. To be honest, like this commercial for, I mean this trailer for this film just like looks really boring. But so yeah, I thought that was the first thing I noticed was like the main character, what's his name? Anthony Ramos, like the main character. It's very interesting that he was in She's Gotta Have It. And like when he was in She's Gotta Have It, there was like this positionality of like him being more black leaning, more like Afro-Latino, which we're gonna dissect that word in a second. But I thought it was interesting that his role for that was like more street, it was for a black audience. And then now he's held in a film where you're definitely seeing nothing of black. And like one thing I want to just be more bold about, which is I know I'm gonna get me attacked, but so I told you today I just have the smoke. We're not calling people black anymore. Like this whole black ambiguity thing, we've really got to let it go. Because I'm at a point where I'm also just like, okay, I turned a coin for myself. Where one thing about me is like I'm black in every country, so that's BEIC. I'm a big black. I'm a black in no matter where you put me in the world, I will never be racially ambiguous. And centering people who are not racially ambiguous should be the idea of blackness. That should just be very simple. Because if things are always if the exception has become the norm, then what about the people who are actually experiencing blackness for real? And terms change with times. So right now for me, if you're racially ambiguous, you're not black to me. Because black, dark-skinned people are suffering and on the fringes, and they can be a whole film about being in the heights and not keep them in there, because it just shows how much power non-black people have, people who don't look black, racially ambiguous, how much power they have. So you're not gonna see me calling people who aren't black, okay? That's gonna get me dragged. I know it is. Seeing people in comments like, my sister is like this and I'm like this, so why? What are you saying? Send me I'll send you my addy, we can fight. Like, I don't know what to say, because I'm just also at a point where I'm like, we need to really like be centering people who are like super marginalized. And we all know there's some people who are marginalized. We all know like it's been hard for generations. I got a fucking email from this really sweet lady. She was like 78, 80 almost, in a nursing home. She had watched one of my colorism videos, and she was like, I just want to thank you so much for speaking about colorism. She's like, I'm 80 years old, I'm in a nursing home, and I just want to let you know that this light skin, how they treat you has been how they've been treating me for years of my life. And even in this nursing home, it's still very colorist. And she had got me details and stuff like that, which if she's watching, like, thank you for writing me. I will respond sometime. I'm not good with responding, but I really appreciate it. I thought that was so interesting that like it has been going around for forever. A dark-skinned lady in a nursing home who's 80 is writing me about colorism that she's facing to this day, bro. Like, she's old and she's still facing colorism. So I'm not doing this racially ambiguous stuff. And like the term Afro-Latino, I want to let Afro-Latinos have that discourse, because that's their lived experiences. But one thing I will say is a lot of people who are not black in their own countries come to the US and rebrand themselves as black in this new term of Afro-Latina, but they know in their own countries they're not looked at as a black person. That's all I want to say about that, because a lot of times I feel like it's there are people who are my color and darker in Latin America. Like, the #1 place that enslaved people were brought was Latin America. So you want me to believe that you, Anthony Rumet, hold on, you, Anthony, is Afro-Latina, and where is the Afro? Like, call me old school, but I always thought like Afro meant you have an Afro, not a loose curl. I always thought an Afro was an Afro. Call me old school, but I thought that's what I thought Afro was root for African, like, for real. Not like my great-grandmother was maybe mixed race and that, no. At this point, like, you gotta, and I just think people need to be okay with that. Like, if you are not looking black in every country, maybe you just need to just get a pen and paper and just listen, take notes. Maybe sit this round out. Maybe next round will be, you know what I'm saying? Just move with the times, because this is a mess. This is a fucking mess. And this is also like linking this into like my issue with Pose as well, because Pose is mad colorist and has been mad colorist from the jump. And I don't know, I think it's what, season 4 that just came out, last season that came out. I stopped watching it the season before this one season because it was so colorist. And even how they did Candy, one of 2 only dark-skinned people in the whole show, how she was always the butt of the joke, how even the way she had died was very brutal, how even in her death they were mocking her, making fun of her, how they like when you look at Pose, like the visuals, there's more white people, people who are lighter than paper bag represented than there are dark-skinned femmes. What's that about? What's that about? Like, and I tortured myself and I watched this last season because I was like, and it was just so triggering. There was just so many non-dark skin. There were so many there were so many light skin and non-black, racially ambiguous and white people massively represented, and very, very few, almost to none, no roles of anybody who is deep dark skin and a non-man. There was like none of that. And that's erasure. Like, I don't know about y'all, but like I'm queer and dark skinned, and like I know we exist in spaces, but somehow when it comes to like representation in any kind of queer media, let's be also keep it 100, 99.9%, because I think one thing I always want to talk about is like colorism is not just exclusive to like things going on with like black cis men, because as somebody who doesn't even date men, like colorism is super prevalent in my life, in lesbian spaces, in queer space, especially in queer spaces, because I also feel like queerness has been also like a rebrand of just essentially being ran by like a lot of biracial and light-skinned people. But that's not the conversation. Like for real, like these things are like very prevalent and we're left out. And when we go to, and I think that like it's just disappointing. And even the role that Elektra has imposed, and how Elektra is like this like almost unpenetrable diva who has really no softness to her. Even in that one scene where she gets thrown out of her house, I think like she turns around to her mom as she's been kicked out and she adds lipstick to be like, you're never, as someone who's been kicked out the house, like that was never what my mind was telling me to do in that moment. Like, you know what I mean? Like as a dark skinned person, like I don't know who can get kicked out of the house and like they want to put lipstick on. Like I understand that she's supposed to be this diva, but that's a trope that dark skinned people have. She reminded me of Tony Childs off of Girlfriends. How Tony Childs was seen as like this kind of monolithic diva. I am always, and that's like a fucking trope. And the film Pose was written by more white men than it was anyone else, and even Janet Mock is biracial. So like when y'all write us into shit, it's fucked up. It's fucked up. And I would also want to hear dark-skinned trans women speak about that more, because once again, I'm not a dark-skinned trans woman. But that's just something I noticed, that this shit is mad colorist. It's always mad colorist. And like, I know we like want to have a good film with us in it. I know we're pushing like, oh, come on, write us into this thing. Like we deserve to be seen. Sometimes it's maybe better if we're not, because what they're writing is nonsense. It's nonsense. It's terrible. Yay, like even the way that this Emmanuel Lin person was even using the dark-skinned people as the people who are serving. People don't know how to use dark-skinned people if we're not for servitude.
Did you not see that in the dancers as well?
Those are roles that historically we've been able to fill, right? We've been able to be the dancers, and we've been able to be in the hair salons and, you know, this and that. But like a lead, you know, that's the breakthrough.
People don't know how to use dark-skinned people if we're not for sexual, only for sexual, no intimacy, no romantic. The only time I have ever seen dark-skinned people loving each other that I can think of off the top of my head was in Queen and Slim. And did they not murder her in like the most brutal and like horrific way? Like I have not seen a movie where I can see dark-skinned people get murdered and killed in movies and we're laid out shown. Like they will just show us like, because we're so normalized, because police violence happens a lot dark-skinned people, and times it's filmed and shown and released is to dark-skinned people. So we have this way of thinking almost that dark-skinned people in movies deserve violence, which is fucking colorist. And it shows the ways in which all this way of thinking affects how we get by on a day-to-day basis, how people interact with us, how we interact with each other, the roughness that even dark-skinned people show other dark-skinned people. Living in a country where there's mad dark-skinned people with dark-skinned people, I think there's this belief as West Africans, as Nigerians, that black people deserve pain, that black people can take a lot. It's sick. And it comes from colonialism, and it comes from anti-blackness, and the fact that black people have been the ones holding up everything. You Afro-Latinas that are not Afro-Latinas will not have that word if it was not for dark-skinned people that are actually black and Latina. But do they have an opportunity to go and make a film? And in this little thing, this one girl had said there was 2 or 3 things that were just mad gaslighting. I just want to like quickly critique it. So I'm going to watch it, show it, and then analyze it. I know this video is longer than I wanted it to be because I have to make closed captions, but I'm very impassioned. So let's go. My first impressions when watching In the Heights, the trailer, was that it reminded me of Kylie Jenner's Pepsi commercial. Just beige and white. Just like that. It looked just like that.
I think it's important to note though that in the audition process, which was a long audition process, there were a lot of Afro-Latinos there, a lot of darker skinned people, and I think they were looking for just the right people for the roles.
When you say, like, this is so, like, you bring up colorism and someone says, we wanted to get people who are best for these roles. You know that you're like, if and I mean, I don't even want to break it down so 1 + 1, but if a white person said, like, to a black person, like, oh, we want to have black people working for this company, but we need to have people who are, like, best for this roles, like, you're saying that, you know, we're not best for the role. I mean, this is what I mean. It's just boring. It's boring. It's basic. You're a colorist. You don't have no dark-skinned friends. You don't have no dark-skinned non-men friends. You can't even have, if you have us, you will fire us. You don't, we're not in the same circle. And one girl in there had said something that was very gaslighty, where she said,
realize until making this movie that I didn't really get to see myself or people that look like my siblings that are darker than me on screen.
It's, you know, when they brought up colorism, she didn't answer it directly. She said it's important for people, she didn't, people like me don't get represented. It's not coming to people like me on TV, people like me and darker. Girl, there are many yous on TV. There are many, there's like Cardi B, there's J-Lo, there's like literally, even Beyonce's like darker than you. There's many yous on TV, okay? But there's not many me's on TV. So what you're not gonna do is like gaslight yourself into saying that because you're black, when you're not actually. I didn't see anybody black in this. You are now with us as our brother and sister, because we were not your brother and sister when you took that role. And like, one thing for real about colorism is people really need to get through their mind that if you're gonna actually be like, I don't even like the word anti-colorist because colorism is like the fabric of everything, but if you're going to try to like chip into some positive direction the harm that has been done through colorism, one of the most basic things that you can do is not take roles. You need to read something and look around and say like, yeah, this is actually not good. Yeah, I'm not gonna take this. I think that this actually should be given to dark skin. You would be doing that. But like, y'all don't even want to do that. And then you want me to extend the word black to people who like don't even see my existences and think that we live the same life? No. They're non-blacks. I can already imagine the fucking smoke I'm about to get in this video, but it's gaslighting, and I just feel like the reason I'm this passionate about it is because I can see where it's going. I can see that the more we continue to like allow these things happening, the worse it's gonna get for people who are like me or darker. It's going to just keep getting worse. And it's already terrible, but like what you're not gonna do is take away like my ability to like assess situations. And like, I just kind of wish people who were like trolls and like hated like and colorists and come on my comments, I wish that y'all would know like, I'm not gonna change my mind because this is my lived experience. Like I would, you know, y'all are fighting me because you're thinking that my perspective is wrong, but this is my lived experiences. So like, if you want to invest in like attack me for something else, maybe attack me for like what kind of food I'm eating or something that is maybe more malleable. But this is something that I really, really like live. So I'm not gonna like change myself because it's upsetting you or offending you or hurting your friend or hurting your sister or your mother or whoever is like light skin in your life that is triggered by someone bringing up colorism. Because look at this nonsense. And the worst part is, this is not, you know, usually when there's like a movie and it fails, like because of, it's not gonna happen again. Like if they had like a dark skin movie with all dark skin people, no violence, and it didn't do well, that's all we got for the next 25 years. That's all we got. I'm still watching old school movies where everybody's dark skinned because that's all we got. But this paperback movie, the paperback colored movie, there's gonna be another one in like 3 days, and another one in 4 days, another one in 20 days. So y'all need to get through your head that you're not oppressed. You're not underrepresented. You're represented. But also representation is not the fucking liberatory thing through this. It's not. I don't know what it is, but it's also not my job to fucking think about these things. I'm already giving you a lot of fucking information right now. So that's all I wanted to say. I hope I can just like edit this very smoothly and upload it without doing my thing that my brain does, which is where I start to feel insecure that I said something wrong or that I didn't express myself well and gaslight myself, because some of y'all motherfuckers in my comment be gaslighting me. So I'm second guessing myself when I know that my first thing was fire. So I hope that I just upload this as it is, but that's all I wanted to say. So thank you for watching. Have a great day and goodbye. This goodbye is not good, but I'm gonna figure it out. So for now, goodbye.